Hi there and welcome back to another episode at Station Road. Now today's episode may possibly be the last episode for 2021 and it's definitely the pre-Christmas episode, as you can see here. So this episode really is going to take a look at what's on the plans for early 2022. Plus, I'll also feature a small running session which will obviously show the most recent additions to the layout, which of course include the churchyard and all that scenic area around the hillside. So what do I have planned for 2022? Now immediately the first project that comes to mind, of course, is kind of a continuation of the hill scene, and it's actually looking at the landscape and infrastructure that will be beyond the railway lines past the hill section. So at the moment we have this overhead bridge that basically slams into the wall of the garage. Now, of course, that doesn't look very realistic at all. So I've been thinking a lot about what I can do here and how potentially I can manipulate that scene so, of course, that road disappears off into the distance. So I think the first thing really is what's happening on the other side of the railway lines. Now, here I will continue with some of the arch retaining walls, and these I think I will do in the stone type effect as per the arched retaining walls on the scenic side of the fiddle yard. So rather than looking at possibly some kind of countryside scene, I really wanted to continue with the heavy industrial look of that area because of course down at the other end we have quite a substantial amount of industrial buildings. So that I wanted to continue right through, and being hard up against the wall of the garage, the idea is to do this in very low relief. So I took some photos and jumped on the computer and just sort of had a little bit of a play around, very roughly of course, of how it could be potentially planned out and what type of industrial buildings might be situated there. So looking at this, we have a sort of rough idea, a rough plan of what I intend to do. Now, the buildings I'm going to use here, I'll continue with some of the Metcalfe buildings as I do have a number of factory kits, and what I will do is I will actually kit bash them to fit into these areas. So the other side of the overhead bridge down the long straight, now this section is designed to hinge up so that I can access the hidden fiddle yard underneath. So whatever I do here, it will need to be removable, so I can't really anchor anything into place. But what I intend to do here is there's probably enough of a gap between the back railway line and the wall of the garage where I can have a slight embankment, although it will actually be kind of more like a forced perspective embankment, and that will be supported by a lower retaining wall, much like the other retaining wall, which is on the opposite side of the scenic fiddle yard. So that would lead up then to the same road level as the overhead bridge, and there'll be a smaller stone wall at the top of that embankment. Now behind that, and although the gap is quite small, the plan here is to have very low relief industrial buildings. Once again, Metcalfe kit bashed, where I'll probably just simply use the fascias or the front surfaces of buildings. And what I'm actually thinking of doing in order to get that sort of depth of field and the appearance that buildings go off into the distance is I actually got hold of some N-gauge factories as well. So the plan is, and I hope it kind of works, is that I'll have further buildings that will be tucked in behind, once again just the front surface of the buildings, and they'll be an N-gauge. So hopefully the impression will be that these factories disappear off into the distance. So another project too, which is something that's actually cropped up quite recently as I've been thinking about the lower level loop that was completed a wee while back. Now this of course included the cutting that was built next to the churchyard, and of course all the scenic treatments and things that went on in there. And I realigned the track bed so that it could then meet up with the new alignment of track bed that ran under the hillside at the other end. Now, one of the things that of course came up in that was that the clearance between the track bed and the underside of the goods yard and the small sort of town area was of course too low. So initially, in order just for me to get the loop running and to test it, I had to hack a chunk out of the goods yard scenic panel. Now of course this is a lift out panel so that I can actually gain access under there, but I took a chunk out so that I could get some trains to pass underneath. Now in hindsight, I kind of wish I hadn't actually done that now, because I've now had what I believe is a much better idea for solving this issue about clearances. So the plan that I've now come up with actually involves raising that entire area. So I've marked out an area where I can actually lift this whole level of baseboard, and I'm only planning on raising it by say 10 to 15 millimeters. So it only needs to be a minor amount, but the interesting thing is it will actually create another level within the layout, and what we'll actually end up with is a set of tracks that run through into the goods area, which will actually be at a slightly higher level than the station, which actually might add a bit of interest in doing so. So that will mean the small town area will also be at the higher level as well, and from there then I can continue some scenic areas and probably build up other areas around this with some of the condensed foam and shape some landforms and so forth in that fashion. So the other benefit in doing this as well is there are some areas, particularly around where the shops are in the town scene, the baseboard substrate is pretty rough anyway, and it is actually still probably one of the very last areas of my layout that still uses some old 3mm MDF. So in doing so, I'll be able to actually get rid of all of that and replace it with some heavier weight baseboard substrate. So that's two projects at least anyway that will start in the early part of 2022, and I will start with the back scene industrial area behind the hill section first, because I really do want to get that complete and see how it looks. So before I sign off, I thought I'd just take this opportunity to say a massive thank you to everyone for the support they have given to the Station Road channel, to the subscribers, to the amazing comments that I receive on my videos, and everyone who just enjoys watching the Station Road channel. It's been a very interesting year, and although I have continued to soldier on with the channel, we all know what has been going on around the world over this last year, and we all know how difficult it has been for everyone. So I'm kind of hoping that the Station Road channel has offered maybe a little bit of respite for people to sort of take their minds off these rather difficult times we're having around the world. So to finish off this video, there will be a short running session, as I mentioned previously, which will show the completed hill section, the scenic side of the fiddle yard and the churchyard. So I'd just like to wish everyone a very, very Merry Christmas and a fabulous New Year. Do take care, look after yourselves, and I will catch you next time. Bye for now.